Neon is a serverless Postgres provider built for the cloud. It separates out the compute and storage capabilities required, allowing for features like auto-scaling and bottomless storage, and meaning that you can have the power and flexibility of Postgres without having to provision a database for yourself. Hi, I'm Kevin from Budibase, and I'd like to show you how you can combine Neon with Budibase to be able to allow your customers and colleagues to achieve their goals more quickly and more efficiently. Let's dive in. I'm going to sign up for a Neon account from their website, and I'm going to use my Google account and log in. I get this welcome screen. We get a free project with up to 10 branches in a free tier, 3 gigabytes of storage and 1 gigabyte of RAM, which is great. And we get this sort of stepping through. We can do branching. We've got an SQL editor, and we're going to create our first project. I'm going to leave the name blank, which means it'll be auto-generated. I've got the Postgres version of 15. I can choose 14 or 16. And the region I'm going to deploy to is in Europe, because that's where I'm based. So I'll create the project, and I get this connection string. This connection string is made up of a number of parts. It's made up of my username, Kevin, my password, which is ghosted out here. If I click on it though, it'll reveal itself. The host name and the database name. I'm going to need those details in a few minutes. And if I click into Node.js, it separates them out even more clearly. But before we jump into Budibase, just a quick tour of this dashboard. We have those connection details here in the same way. I can click on the password, it'll be revealed. It's right there. I've got the ability to look at different branches, which we're not going to use. But if you want versions of your database to test features, then that's super helpful. We're able to see the tables that exist in our database. We're able to provide SQL statements and execute those against our database. We're able to do serverless operations, and we can have multiple databases if we're not in the free tier. For now, I'm going to jump into Budibase, and I'm going to create a new application. To be able to create an application in Budibase, I can use templates. I can import an app I've already got, or I can start from scratch. I'm going to start from scratch. And I'm going to call this my customer feedback application and create app. Budibase wants to help professionals turn their data into action. And as such, we want to help you get your data from wherever it is. Whether or not that's through a series of REST API endpoints, relational or non-relational databases, or even some spreadsheet applications, we want to be able to meet you where you're at. To integrate with Neon, we're going to use Postgres. And now we have those details to post the database to user and password, which we're going to get from our connection string. So let's go get those. To help split this up, I'll switch this into Node.js and get my host, copy that. My database name, copy that. My user, copy that. And my password. Now I'm going to be deleting this database at the end of this tutorial, so that's why I don't mind showing these passwords, but you would obviously keep these secret. The other thing I'll do is I'll enable SSL because I want this to be a secure connection, and actually Neon requires that. I'll click connect, and we'll see that the data source has been created successfully, and we get a list of the tables that exist in our database that we're able to import. At the moment, I don't have any tables available because I haven't created any tables yet. So I'll click continue without fetching, and that will start my application now. Now we're able to create tables inside of our Budibase application by using the UI. So I might call this feedback and create. And as if we're adding columns almost in a spreadsheet, we can add the columns, so maybe name, set its type. We've got various types that we could choose, and then save. That's being created in our UI. If I go back to Neon and go into tables now, we'll see there is a feedback table. And if we look at its definition, it has that name column of text and ID is there. Equally, back in Neon, we could use the SQL editor and we could create a table called customers, where we provided maybe the name, which is going to be text, and the email, which would also be text. And run that. And then we have two tables now. We have our feedback table and we have our customers table. So depending on whether you want to use the UI or the SQL query, both are valid. If you do change the database structure on Neon and want to bring that into Budibase, you could go to PostgreSQL inside the UI, click Fetch Tables, and then we can see that customers table is available for us to bring over if we want that as well. So let's think what else we want on this feedback table. First of all, I'm going to add an email field. So email. I'll add a comment. I'll add maybe a rating. And if I look at this, the ID is going to be unique, but actually hard to identify a user from. So I'm going to use the 3 dots beside email and use that as the display column. Amazing. So I now have data that I want to collect: email, comment, rating, and name. And I can create an application around that. I'm going to do that with the design tab. So I'll click into design and we can see the first screen here. Budibase allows us to build single page applications really quickly. We start with this first screen, but we can add as many screens as we want to be able to make our application make sense. And for now, I'm going to click the list view and click continue. And I want to make a list view from our feedback and confirm. I then get the opportunity to set the role-based access level. It defaults to basic, which means our users need to be logged in. Public means they don't have to be logged in. And power and admin are both elevated roles that allow you to segment your application based on your needs. I'm going to leave it at basic and click done. That does a number of things. It adds a link to this nav, which allows us to click to our feedback when we're using it. It adds this screen, and inside of this screen, it adds this component. Now this component looks quite simple, quite straightforward, and it is largely, but it's doing so much. So I click a preview, you can see that this page allows me to create a row. So I can say Kevin at budibase.com. This is great. And maybe give it 5, a rating of 5, and save. That row gets saved, and now this table allows me to see that row. I can click on it and I can edit it. So I've got my create and read, and I'm able to update this. So actually this is even better. I'll move it up to a 6. And for full CRUD functionality, I need to be able to delete. And to do that, there's just one configuration option. We go back to our table, we scroll down this configuration on the right hand side, and we click Show Delete. Now when I preview, click on a row, I have another option, Delete. And by clicking on it, I am presented with this modal, which confirms I want to do that. I don't want to do that at all. I'll cancel that. So I've got this CRUD application already, the ability to create, read, update, and delete. What I really want to do is to have a form that can allow my users to give this data. Maybe this is a standalone link that I send to people after a workshop or after a product review. Maybe it's embedded into my website, so I can collect that data separately. So I'll add a screen, a blank screen this time, and I'll click continue. And this is just going to be called feedback form. I want this to be public, because I don't want people to have to log in to be able to do this. And I'll click done. Inside of this, I'm going to add a component. And the component I'm going to add is this form block here. So straight away, we've got a form. We define it. So from this form, I'll give it a name. I'll call it my feedback form. And that just updates it on the right-hand side. So if I've got multiple components, then I'm able to use those. This is going to create in our feedback table. We might have a title of Tell Us What You Think. I might set the size to large just to make it a bit clearer to read. I can configure the fields. On some forms, I mightn't want all of the fields. In this one, I do. So I'll leave that as it is. I can decide where I want the form labels. In styles, I'm able to set some margins or add some custom CSS. And in the theming over here, I'm able to update the theming of the whole application. So I can say I want this, a bit dark mode or Nord or really bright, depending on what you prefer. I'm going to leave it at Nord. I quite like Nord. For this screen, so I'll click in screens in my feedback form. I want this form to be presented as is and not have the distraction of the other tabs. So I'm going to switch off the showing nav, and I'm going to click on the screen, and I'm going to set the horizontal and I'm going to set the vertical alignment to be centered, just so that it takes up the space that it's given. So I preview that. Tell us what you think. That's looking pretty good. Now, actually, this comment box has been set to be a text field because that's what it is in a database. But we probably want our user to have more space there. So the reason this is a text box is that our database schema says it is text. So if I go back to my data tab in my feedback and hit the 3 dots beside comment and edit column, I can change this instead of text to long form text, so really explicitly in the database, and save that. If I go back to my design tab, it updates the form's layout based on that. So we have a much more helpful and useful display for our user. So previewing that, it looks much better. And I can publish my application. Share this link with whoever might want it. They can give us their feedback. So maybe I'll be my test user, test@budibase.com. Comment, I like this form. 4 stars. So back in my data tab, that data has been collected. Back in Neon, that data is also visible. So using a separate database like Neon, which we haven't had to set up, which is serverless and scaling and fast and brilliant, we can have multiple applications sharing the same data source, which is really cool. So Budibase has a data layer where we can have multiple data sources. It's got this design layer where we can quickly create CRUD applications almost in 1 or 2 clicks. We can create these forms. And we also have this automation layer, which allows us to respond to actions within the app. So user clicks, row creation, or actions coming into the app through a webhook or some other thing and do some other action. I'm going to create a new column on my database called follow-up message. And it's going to be text. And what I want to do is I want to set up an automation that's going to look at the comment and the rating and create a possible follow-up message using AI to be able to speed up my marketing team's responses. So I'll go to automations and I'll click create automation, and I'll call this a feedback generator. I want to trigger this on row creation and save. The table I want to target is the feedback. And when there is a row creation, I want to hit an OpenAI. So I'll click on save. So the prompt I'm going to use is, you are a marketing advisor. You've been given the following feedback and rating. You need to provide an appropriate follow-up message that should be informal but professional. Aim for friendly. Here's the feedback. And I do trigger outputs row, and we use dot notation, and that was called dot comment. And here's the rating. So trigger dot row dot rating. And save. We can choose between ChatGPT 3.5, which is faster and cheaper, or ChatGPT 4, which is slower but gives better responses, but slightly more expensive. And then what do we want to do with that response? When we get that response, we want to update a row, specifically on our feedback table. The row will have an ID of lightning bolt. The trigger outputs, the trigger's ID, so they should match. And then the follow-up message should be coming from our step 1 outputs, and it should be the response. And save. So I finish and test automation, table feedback, and it's only going to look at the comment and the rating. So if I put the comment, this is great, 5 stars, and test, At the time of recording, OpenAI is only available if you're self-hosting, and to be able to use it, you need to provide your OpenAI API key through your Docker installation. I'll do that quickly now and then test this automation. So inside of my app service, I'll do OpenAI, set that, and then I'll restart my service. So now if I test this, get an output which says, "Hi, client's name. Thank you so much for taking time to provide feedback on our service. We greatly appreciate your honest input and are constantly striving to improve our marketing efforts." Blah, 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 blah. Brilliant. A great start for this user. So now I'll publish my application again. I'll go to feedback and I'll say, John at budibase.com. I'll say, "I really like this, but I thought that the color was too dark. I like it brighter." 4.5. And I'll save. So John's done that. And then my team come along and they're able to log in. I'll go to my data tab now. Go to my feedback table. I'll find John. Great. So we have a follow-up message for John. I'm going to set this to long form text and save so I can see it a bit better. So, "Dear customer, I hope this message finds you well. Thank you for taking time to provide your feedback. We're thrilled." But we've also built a CRUD application. So I go into preview here and clicking on John's response, I can see that feedback message here. So my team could use this as the starting point for responding to John's feedback, maybe asking for more detail or just letting them know that they've been heard. So on top of our Neon database, we have built a CRUD application that is just available to our logged in users. We've built a feedback form, which we can share with everyone. And we've built an OpenAI integration, which potentially speeds up our marketing team's work, providing a structure to be able to answer their clients quicker. I hope you find this useful and are inspired to try out Neon and Budibase together. Subscribe below. See you again soon. Bye.